would have just excelled in it, because A, she would have made her own aprons. B, she would have even made her own oven gloves. C, she would have made, you know, the outfits and even the headsets to wear, you know, the chef's hats. I'm looking for a chef hat, and I know that there are chef catering companies here in Cyprus, but I want something, I'm looking for something really special. So I've got to shop around and look around, because, you know, my brand is Christine's Holistic Kitchen, for example, but I also want to dress in a certain way, because, you know, I think it just adds a bit of, you know, adventure, because my cooking, I don't just want to be just a normal cook. I want to do multiple things. I want to be like a chef, even though I'm not a chef. I can cook. I believe I can cook just as good as a chef can cook, and I believe that's why a lot of people now are cooking from home, because they want to be able to learn how to cook. Because when you go out for a meal, you should only really go out for a meal perhaps once in a while, but I think a lot of these youngsters are going out for meals like 4 times a week, for example. But if they can learn how to cook some healthy meals, for example, then that's going to save them money, and then they've got money to save, so they're not struggling, for example. And the same with ourselves, you know, with the inflation, you know, everything's going up. Go out for a meal, but go out and enjoy yourself, and then you can cook some lovely meals at home, and then get yourself, even if you put money in a piggy bank or something, you know, a savings box, the money that you would have saved for that week, for example, 10%, you know how much you spend on going for a meal. Yeah, you know how much you spend when you go out clubbing or whatever, for example. Depends what age you are, for example. You know how much you spend. Why not have friends round? And you know what? I always remember, and I will never forget this, when I came to Cyprus, me and the neighbours, we all met, the husbands and wives, we all met, and we were all from around the world. And what was so beautiful is that we all brought our special dishes, and we take it in turns going round each other's houses. This was on a complex in Cyprus, and it was so beautiful, tasting all the different foods that I'd never even tasted before. And it was home cooked. It was Lebanese food, Saudi food, it was Israel food, it was English food, Jamaican food, obviously, me, for example, and it was from all around the world. It was Indian food, it was just beautiful. African food, when I used to go to the hairdressers, they'd give you some African food. It's just beautiful. And it's so nice to taste food from around the world. And instead of going out for a meal, and I'm not trying to put any restaurants out of business, don't get me wrong, but if you can't afford it, then you can't afford it. Then get your friends to come round to you one week, and you cook your meal, right? Like a little buffet thing, and they bring their food as well, and everyone brings their food. And then you got a wonderful night in with your friends. And how much did that cost you? And then you put that money that you would have saved, if it's two of you going out for a meal, for example, and put it in a savings, or in a savings account, for example. And then you've got that money that you've saved, and then you've got that money at the end of the year. Then you could see if you're saving, say, I'm just going to say something small, right? Because I know in the UK it's not. When you go out for a meal, you're probably spending what, 200? If you go out for a meal, 2 people. If you go to a nice restaurant, for example. But if you cook the food, and you've cooked the food, and it's a small amount, for example, because everyone's bringing in a dish themselves, for example. So everyone brings in a dish themselves. Excuse me, my eyelash. Something happened with my eyelash there. So everyone brings a meal for themselves, for example, and then they bring it and you put it all out on the table. So it's like everyone's got a buffet. It's like a beautiful buffet that you've done. And you've probably spent what, £20. So you've saved yourself, say, that's if you go out for a meal every week, okay? You've probably saved yourself, say, 120, right? So that £120, because it's two people. If it's two people, if it's one person, then it's, £60, for example, you may have saved, for example. And then that, you times that, and if you go out for, that's if you go out for a meal every week, okay? And I'm just saying this. So if you times that by 52, that's a savings of £6,240 that you're saving, or $6,240 that you're saving. That's a lot that can go in a savings account, and it's called a crisis fund or a rainy day fund, for example. And you imagine if you keep saving that, and if you save that for what, your child's at uni, for example, university, college, and you do for 5 years, for example, that's 31,200. That's money that they could have to put down on, depends where you live. I'm not saying London, because I don't think you'd be able to put much down on something in London, but they could either have that as rental, for example, or put it down on a mortgage. And if you did that, if that was done for even another 5 more years, for example, 10 years, that's 156,000 that you would have saved. That you could even use that for a retirement fund or something, or that 156,000 can then, I'm not an investor and I'm not a financial consultant, so please do not get this mixed up. I'm just talking as a woman, for example, that has got children that would do this, for example. So then you save that money, and then you can then put it into a proper account where you can get money that's accrued some sort of interest, for example. And then that money then can be used to put down on a property or something like that. So I'm just talking to you in this way regarding the cooking, okay? And this is why I'm doing my cooking programs, so that you can learn how to eat healthily, or for a good price. I can show you how to cook for under a tenner for 5 people, for example. My one-pan dishes, like I did one-pan chicken. There's lots of one-pan dishes you can do, for example. That's one example of saving money. And if you like to cook, then boy, you could be on YouTube making your own cooking program, just like how I cook once a week, twice a week, and I put it on YouTube, and I get ads on my videos, for example, for cooking. And then I'm attracting different people that may be interested in business, but they also like to cook. They're interested, or they may know someone that is a business person, for example. So I hope that that's making sense. Or what you could do with that money is you could use that and go on a beautiful holiday. Go to the Maldives for a week. You and your partner, all inclusive. Stay in a beautiful, hotel, for example. Or go to Disney, for example. There's lots of things you can do to treat yourself. Isn't it well worth saving that money? Because some people are going out for meals like 3 or 4 times a week. And you can save that money and you can eat just as good at home. The stuff that you want at the restaurant, cook it at home. It will be a fraction of the price, and put the money as savings into an account. It's going to get interest, so you can then have money to do what you truly want, for example. Or even just look at little things that you can just cut back on. I'm not saying go without 100%. I'm just saying, like, to make it fun, like how we did Neighbours. We, every month, actually sometimes it was every week. Sometimes what would happen is we'd all bring a dish, one of our dishes that we've made that is from our culture. So we all would try different cultured food, and it was delicious. I was like, wow, I experienced some really delicious food. It was just amazing, absolutely amazing. We had Cypriot food, Greek food, there was Bulgarian food, all different types of food that we would experience with, and it was just delicious. And all it cost us was what we actually cooked ourselves. Isn't that well worth it than going out to some restaurant and then, say 10 people have spent 1,000, for example. I'm just saying off the top of my head, depends what restaurant you go to. But if 10 people, if each person, 2 people is, say £100, that could be 1,000, couldn't it? So think about it. If you're going out for meals, look at ways that you can save money, because we're in inflation, so we need to beat inflation but still have fun. We still want to have fun.